Okay guys, today we're going to talk about actions and guidance prayers. If you look on your quick guide, you'll see a section that says guidance prayers and actions. Spending actions in the game is very simple. You can do one of four things. You can spend an action to move one zone, make a combat roll, access your armory, or rest. Now movement, we'll just start there, is pretty simple. You're going to take one of your action tokens, flip it to spent, and then take your wielder and you can move one zone. Now, if you want to move another zone, you can just simply spend another action and move your wielder model one more zone. Now, you'll notice that zones are actually depicted by this black mist that separates the board into squares. You'll have different types of zones. You'll have rooms, you'll have dark zones, or the pit. Now, rooms are very simple. You can move in and out of a room if there is an exposed door here, meaning that there's no stronghold over the door. That also just costs one action. Another thing you can do is you can move your character anywhere within the zone that you're in during your turn without spending an action. This is important because in some cases you may be able to target into a room. You can place your wielder model in the door and be able to target anything in the adjacent room. Now, if your character or model is left there before your turn is over, they cannot move again. So it's important to move your wielder away from any doors. That way other wielders can shoot and or move in and out of those rooms. The other types of zones that are in the game, the dark zone and the pit, we'll discuss those later as they come into play. So let's talk about bound a little bit. In some cases, you may not be able to move because you will become bound. The things that can cause you to be bound are active breaches. So if I'm in a zone with an active breach, I cannot move out of that zone until this breach is taken out. Once that breach is removed, you'll be able to move again. Another thing that may keep you bound is a horde. Now a horde is 5 or more cards in a zone. There'll be a token marking that it is a horde. If you're in a zone with a horde, you cannot move until that stack is less than 5, making it 4 or less, then you'll be able to move in and out of that zone freely. Another thing that might cause you to be bound are monarchs. Now, if a monarch is in your zone, you're bound. You can't move out of that zone until that monarch is either moved or defeated from the zone that you are in. And that's it for movement. Another action you can take in the game is make a combat roll. Now, making a combat roll is, again, pretty simple. If you want to make a combat roll, the first thing you're going to need to do is choose the weapon you want to use. So I'm using Sparrow. I'm going to choose this weapon, which is a ranged weapon. And I also gain the gift that is in this white box, allowing me to do something I wouldn't normally be able to do. With this particular weapon, I have a distance of 0 to 2. So I'm going to choose this weapon, and then I'm going to choose my target. In this situation, Sparrow is in an adjacent zone. He's going to use his weapon to target out one zone. I got an 18. What I needed was a 12 or better. 18 hits, so then I take that enemy off of the board and I place it off to the side of my wielder display. What we just defeated was a darkness card. It was a light of 12 to hit, 11 or below, you miss, and they strike back. Now let's talk about guarding just for a moment. Let's just say I spent an action and I wanted to make a combat roll against this guild, and I roll a 10, which is below 12, so I miss. That means this card is going to strike me back. At that point, I need to guard. You're still in combat. The red D6 that you see here is our strike die, and this is our green D10, which is our faith die. We're going to roll those together. Now, my faith is a 9, and his strike attack is a 3 plus 1, making him a 4. My 9 meets or beats his 4. That means I block. Combat ends. Now, if I were to roll and he were higher than my roll, let's just say he's a 3, 4, 5, and I only get a 4, he actually hits me. That means I would, for this particular enemy, take a burden on yellow, and I would also be webbed, placing the webbed card because guilt had hit me. Now, every enemy in the game will strike back differently. Make sure you refer to the darkness quick guide or the battle guide to see how each enemy strikes back. It's important to know what could happen before you make an action. All right, let's discuss the next action. accessing your armory. Now, in the game, you will be collecting discernment cards, which are weapons, for various reasons. You could pray for discernment, and or other events can happen where you achieve discernment cards. Now, these discernment cards come in many different forms. It may be a melee weapon, a prayer weapon, a shield, and various other things. You only have two hands where you can carry things. So let's just say Sparrow wants to wield this shield, and then he wants to take his other two weapons and store them up in his armory. Now, every weapon that is in your armory can be looked at any time. You can just glance and see what you have. It's not a big deal, but if you want to swap something out or equip a different item, you would have to spend an action, find the item you like, and then you can swap or place your equipped cards wherever you like. Keep in mind, if you equip a card over your main weapon, that weapon is no longer usable. The weapons that are on top are the ones that are active, placing the rest of your cards back in the armory. Now, when accessing your armory, if there are other wielders in your zone, you can swap and trade with other wielders in your zone, accessing both of your armories. Let's just say I wanted to give this to Samsonia, who's in my zone, and I also wanted to give her this. I would pass that over to her. She would put what she likes in her armory and or equips whatever weapon she likes in her hands. The last action you can do is rest. Now, this isn't actually an action. This is actually a way where you can rest the remainder of your actions and make another guidance prayer. Typically, a wielder will have one guidance prayer to use as they see fit, but if you spend the remainder of your actions and rest, you'll be able to make another guidance prayer without having to have a token. Which leads us into the next section of the video, guidance prayers. Now, guidance prayers are very important in the unseen. This is how you're going to prepare for taking action in any situation. Without doing this, you're robbing yourself of great power and blessings. This is how you will gain armor and weapons. You'll be delivered out of tight spots or be healed of burdens, or even call for angels to come fight by your side. Now, we're going to go through each one step by step. If you want to spend a guidance prayer, you can do this at any time. It does not have to be your turn. You'll flip it over, and you're going to take your purple D12, which is your guidance prayer dice, and you're going to choose one of these guidance prayers. The first one being Discernment. Now, Discernment is very simple. It's a trust of 3, meaning that this die has to be a 3 or better. You roll to see. I got a 12, so that means I get one Discernment card from the deck, flip it over, and then I can, at that point, choose to put it in my armory, place it in one of my hands, and or trade it with another player. Now, when you draw Discernment, that automatically accesses your armory. Another guidance prayer that you may be able to do is to pray to reveal. Now, there's 2 different ways to utilize this guidance prayer. At any given time in the game, you may come across a situation where you don't want to deal with the top card, the active card that is in the zone you're targeting. Pray to reveal. On a trust of 5, you can rearrange the order of these cards any way you like. So if fear was on top and I didn't want to deal with them, I might want to put suffering there and put everything else at the bottom, rearranging the deck. Another way to use reveal. Now, at some point in the game, you might come across doubt. If they manage to hit you, you will receive these afflictions called division. Now, these reduce your faith by 1 point. They'll be placed on your character display. These can build up over time, so if you get more and more, it starts to get very crippling. To remove the doubt tokens, you will spend your guidance prayer, roll your guidance die. On a 5 or better, you can remove one of your division tokens. Let's talk about the next guidance prayer. This is called Deliverance. On a trust of 7 or better, you or another wielder may move one zone even if bound, or remove webs. Now, in the game, you may come across a time when you're in a tight spot. You may be in a zone where you are bound, such as being in a zone with a horde. What you would do is you would spend your guidance prayer token. On a 7 or better, you'll be able to move out of that zone, one zone. You can also do this for other wielders who may be in a tight spot. Another way to use Deliverance is you may be webbed. If you want to remove webs, you will spend your guidance prayer token. You'll need a 7 or better, then you'll be able to remove the web cards. Now let's talk about healing. Healing is something you're going to be doing quite often. Now in the game, you and or other wielders you're playing with may end up getting burdens. These are pretty nasty. You want to keep these off as much as possible. For every burden that you have, it reduces your light by 1, meaning that this dice gets reduced, making it much harder for you to hit. Now, in the game, if you want to pray for healing, you can do this for you or another wielder in your zone. What you do, you spin your guidance prayer. You'll have to roll a 10 or better. If that happens, you flip the burden over and you are healed. Now let's say you have a couple of gifts exposed up here and you're burdened on one of them. If you're healed of that burden, the card comes off completely. If you haven't earned that gift yet, you simply flip it over. And last but not least, you can pray for a miracle. Now, miracles are pretty difficult to pull off. It's a 1 in 12. You'll spend your guidance prayer. You'll roll it. No. Ha, there it is. So if you get a 12, you can place any angel anywhere on the board. In this case, I'm going to use the warrior angel, placing him in this zone, and it would take out every single one of these enemies. And that would go next to my wielder display. Now we'll talk a little bit more about angels, their effects, and what they do in future videos. But as for now, that is the end of actions and guidance prayers. Once everybody's spent their actions and guidance prayers and you go around the table, you'll go into darkness phase. And then when the chosen phase begins again, everybody will flip over their action tokens and guidance prayers and start anew, beginning with the person who has leadership. Well, that does it for today's video, everybody. Thank you for watching, and I hope this helps you guys figure out how to get the game started, spinning actions, guidance prayers, and things like that. Now, I know we mentioned some things in the video, such as angels and or strikebacks. Those are going to come in future videos, so if you guys are curious about how each darkness strikes back, what an auto strike is, what a spawn strike is, and things like that you'll see throughout the book. We're going to go into detail on that in future videos, and so stick around. Subscribe, like, share, please comment. Any of those things would just super help us out. And if you guys just want to keep up to date and see the videos as they come out, please subscribe. That's the best way to do it, and we will send out alerts and things as that goes on. So another thing to remember is that there is audio dramas that run the story of the campaign. So don't forget to go to the website and listen to those as you play or begin or end each chapter. It really kind of enhances the gameplay. The next video is going to be about spawn strikes, auto strikes, and or strikebacks. Thanks for playing. Thanks for watching. Go and know that he is with you.